Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
When shopping for your family's meals, do you know where you can find Alaska-grown products? Everywhere. They're available at your local grocery stores and farmers markets across the state. Alaska-grown products are fresher and more nutritious, and buying local helps grow our economy. So just look for the Alaska-grown label when you shop, or ask your grocer where the Alaska-grown products are. Remember, Alaska-grown. It's closer, fresher, better.
And it's all Alaska-grown.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On the satellite imagery, we'll start out here to the west. Weak disturbance bringing some clouds in across the Pribilofs, lifting north of the islands there earlier today, extending on down across the Alaska Peninsula, and then down to the south. More clouds gathering associated with the next front. Kind of separating here, you got a mass of moisture sliding up toward the eastern Aleutians, and then this bunch over here to the west, that all coming up, and it'll make a pretty good push into the southern Bering Sea overnight tonight. Otherwise, up to the north there, well, clouds across the entire north slope, north of the Brooks Range, some higher stuff coming down from the northwest there onto the coastline, but south of the Brooks Range, nothing but sunshine once again today. Temperatures in the 60s to lower 70s, anywhere from just east of Norton Sound. Again, down southward toward Bristol Bay, or into Bristol Bay, actually, King Salmon in the lower 70s, and across south central Alaska, and some partly sunny skies here over the southeast coast. A little bit of a disturbance right there, circulating some moisture back in toward the eastern portions of the southern southeast coast today. And there were some pretty good showers associated with that, kicked off mostly again along and east of the border over the mountains there, but some of that did slip to the west in toward Stewart and Hyder. Otherwise, is a partly to mostly day here across the Panhandle, and again all the sunshine, light winds now, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound. Still a lot of clear skies out here over the Gulf of Alaska and beyond, back to Kodiak Island, up along the southwest coast. And you get into the higher stuff right through here. Low clouds and fog, north side of St. Lawrence Island there, into the Bering Strait, and of course more extensive along the eastern Arctic coast, and even fog, although it's dissipating throughout the day here, with the lower clouds tending to thin out a little bit there north of the Brooks Range into the afternoon. Otherwise, again, some areas of light rain, fog, and drizzle on the outer edge of the moisture associated with that next front pushing northward. A couple of bands north of there really not doing much, especially this one could have brought a little bit of precipitation to Nikolsky. Nothing there at Dutch Harbor on Alaska this afternoon, mostly sunny, light winds there, and then this trough, the one leading the way there, brought a little bit of light rain to the Alaska Peninsula. Nothing very heavy, just a few hundredths of an inch in areas there measured in the 12-hour period ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon along the peninsula and even out to the west there. Otherwise, pretty dry here for the remainder of the state, with the areas of clouds up to the north and sunshine tonight. No change here over the interior, right down into the Gulf of Alaska. May start picking up a few maybe lower clouds might start forming here along the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Maybe the coast, nothing too serious. Look for a partly to mostly cloudy evening here for the Panhandle, with most of the showers over into Canada. And then low clouds, fog again will increase here. Maybe some drizzle falling out of the cloud deck there over areas of the North Slope and along the eastern Arctic coast. And then the windier areas back up through here from about Point Lay on down to Point Hope, maybe Kivalina, but nothing very strong at all. And clear skies, mostly clear for the Seward Peninsula, right on down into the, or across the Yukon and Kuskokwim River Valley areas. Look for a general increase in the clouds though for Kodiak Island. Weak low pressure really just no weather associated with it at all. Just a broad trough right through here. Pressure only 1,014 millibars. But look for a few breaks here behind this trough and ahead of this front, extending from about the Alaska Peninsula on up toward the Pribilofs. Then rain pushes eastward here across Nikolsky, pushing in toward Unalaska late tonight, early tomorrow morning, and definitely about almost now by late tonight on the backside of the rain here for Adak and Atka, but stays pretty socked in over toward Kiska. And then windier conditions back towards Shimmy and Attu. Looks like north to northeast, 25 knots for the next couple of days. And for tomorrow, again, day much like today here for the Panhandle, partly to mostly sunny or partly to mostly cloudy, whichever way you want to look at it, with a few showers over toward the border. And then sunshine again, south central Alaska, Prince William Sound, really from about Yakutat all the way down to Fognak Island. Look for the clouds to increase, may become a cloudy day there for Kodiak tomorrow, but staying dry. This shower activity will remain even southwest of Sitkinak and the Trinity Islands, but still a few showers for the central Alaska Peninsula. Maybe a little bit of moisture up there toward Togiak and Cape Newenham, but should stay south of Nunivak Island. This really weak right through here. And northeast winds kind of keep you on the edge of the clouds there for St. Lawrence Island, the Bering Strait there. Not very strong on the offshore flow, but enough keep it VFR across Norton Sound and the Seward Peninsula. And then fog and low clouds as usual here for the Arctic coast, and especially over the North Slope, but that'll be tending to burn back a little bit in the afternoon. And this front makes some headway eastward, spreading some rain. Southeast winds on the increase across the Alaska Peninsula tomorrow. Not too bad on the winds here, just showers back behind the front all the way over to about Kiska Island right there. And then those north to northeast winds at about 25 knots for Shimmy and Attu. Pushing on to the first day of the weekend, looks something like this with that front advancing with increasing southwesterly flow aloft here. That'll push some moisture into the southwest interior. Clouds, periods of rain, Kodiak Island, Kamishak Bay, Iliamna, Lake Iliamna, back up to the northwest there into the Yukon Delta, definitely for the Kuskokwim Delta, Nunivak Island, and out into the northern Bering Sea with lighter winds. Look for some partial clearing during the day on Saturday here in the Alaska Peninsula, especially on the north side there, Port Hayden, Pilot Point, and those locations. That'll extend back to False Pass, and then some showers there from the Unalaska area back out to the west, low clouds and fog and drizzle for the western Aleutians. Then we've got an Arctic front dropping southward here. That'll kick those winds up on the eastern Arctic coast to 25 to 30 knots during the day on Saturday. So a big increase in the winds there Saturday over what you'll see tomorrow, while the winds fall back here from Cape Lisburne down to the Bering Strait, still out of the north or northeast, but much lighter than what they'll be tomorrow. Mostly sunny skies, Yakutat again, eastern interior looking really good for the first day of the weekend here, all the way back into the Chukchi Basin. And the southeast coast here again, partly to mostly cloudy with, should be shower free, with areas of fog possibly developing along the coast there with light winds in that location. Temperatures at mid-afternoon across the southeast coast ranged from 60 down there at Heidelberg to 55 over at Stewart, 65 at Sitka, and Skagway pushed up to 70 while Juneau had 67. Looking at mid-60s here along the North Gulf Coast, over the Copper River Basin, McCarthy reached 70. 60s for the most part across the Tanana Valley areas with Northway at 66, Fairbanks up to 65. Another warm day into the 70s once again for the Susitna Valley with Chilitna at 75. That also matched at Port Allsworth, 75 degrees at mid-afternoon. Those are the two warmest locations in the state today. Otherwise, 60s and lower 70s across the Kenai Peninsula. Upper 60s to lower 70s here across Bristol Bay. 72 at King Salmon, 73 at Kaliganik, 62 down at Kodiak, and heading up to the north. Along the Arctic coast, temperatures near 40 this afternoon, mid-40s over the north slope, and then south of the mountains with more sunshine, mid-50s to lower 60s, and that temperature pattern gradually warming till you get up to 71 here at, I believe that's Holy Cross, 60 degrees, so at Unalakleet, AKwx 66, a little cooler back toward Nome, 61 in Kotzebue with a 65 in McGrath, 70 at Bethel. Also out along the coast here, Kipnuk reached 70 degrees, and upper 50s to mid 60s for the Alaska Peninsula, mid 50s for the Pribilofs, upper 50s there for the Eastern Aleutians, both at Unalaska and Nikolsky, and 50-degree weather all the way out to Shemya. Lows for tonight, lower 50s out that way, maybe some upper 40s for the Aleutians, but generally not much change from what you saw this afternoon. Lower to mid 50s Alaska Peninsula, 45 to 50 here over a good portion of the southwest interior, cooling into the 40s to the north and into the 30s here as you head east. Copper River Basin and the eastern interior there, some areas dropping down toward the freeze point, 30s here for the north slope and the Arctic coast, mid 40s to lower 50s across the Panhandle. And highs for tomorrow, 60s for the Panhandle, and then back into the mid 70s again here for the Susitna Valley. Upper 60s, lower 70s, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin as well. Some good 60-degree weather back out to the west with even a few 70s mixed in here. It looks like 60s for the Alaska Peninsula. Brooks Range northward in the 40s. For flying weather, starting out IFR here, all the way up to the southern slope or the northern slopes of the Brooks Range, on out to the Arctic coast. Good VFR over the interior, Gulf of Alaska down across the Panhandle, and then IFR here developing along the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, covering all of the Bering Sea and the Aleutians northward to St. Lawrence Island. And then for tomorrow afternoon, this pulls back a little bit there, but looks like IFR persists from about Wainwright eastward to Kaktovik throughout the day tomorrow. Excuse me, with good VFR Brooks Range southward into the Gulf of Alaska, and IFR actually increasing here across the Alaska Peninsula, especially on the south side, extending back to just east of Amchitka, northward to the Pribilofs, and then back southwest across the western Aleutians, and that area still extending northward there through the Bering Strait. Passes all remaining VFR tomorrow. Anatuvik, VFR, Adigan as well looking VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, both shaping up to be VFR, as is rainy, windy. Isabel, Mentasta VFR, Tanita, same forecast. Portage, another VFR day there tomorrow, and probably Saturday as well. Chilkoot and White VFR. Freezing levels showing the cooler air mass up here over the Northwest Territories, 4,000 feet up to about 10,000 feet down towards south central Alaska, with that area extending northwestward, about 8,000 feet for the southeast coast, and then a little cooler back out toward the western Bering Sea. And for icing, above the 9,000 foot level with the incoming moisture here to the eastern Aleutians, spreading northward, possibly as far north as the Pribilofs tomorrow, and down across the western Alaska Peninsula, icing free, southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, all the way to the north, and then there could be some more areas icing out over the far western Aleutians. A jet stream tomorrow, big high here over the Russian Far East, a trough south of the Aleutians. Southwest winds here about 120 knots. Still high pressure over the western interior, but the whole pattern shifting to the east, and that'll continue to pull moisture in for Saturday into the southwest part of the state. 9,000 feet, light winds here across southern Alaska, northwest at about 10 for the Panhandle, northeasterlies 10 to 15, or east-northeasterlies through the central interior. Those pick up here over the northern Bering Sea, westerlies 10 to 20 on the Arctic coast there, and picking up some winds now over the Bering Sea as this low center approaches the western Aleutians, west-southwest 25 to 30 knots there for the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula. And then at 3,000 feet, again a low center here right in this area, northeast 30 knots across Shemya and Attu. Southerlies about 20 for the eastern Aleutians and the peninsula. Easterlies, east-northeasterlies at about 15 there, central interior to St. Lawrence Island, coming light and variable across the Brooks Range onto the north slope. Westerlies only at about 10, central and eastern Arctic coast. Very light winds continue across southern Alaska and get a little more of a discernible direction there along the Panhandle with 15 to 20 knotters off the coastline. And from there, looking at turbulence, not much to speak of here. Turbulence free, very smooth tomorrow. Across much of Alaska, could be some light to isolated moderate chop below about 4,000 feet there from roughly Wainwright southwestward to Point Hope, possibly Kivalina, but nothing serious at all. St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilofs, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians there, as those southeast winds pick up a little bit, and then out towards Chimianat too. And after the break, a stargazer, I'll be back with a look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
Two triangles this Labor Day. Welcome to Stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dehne Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory.
Back in May, we told you about some triangles you could see in the sky after midnight. Well, thanks to our positioning in the solar system and the arrangement of the planets, we get to see another triangle formed by the planets and a lot earlier in the night.
That's right, James. The other triangle you see every year, high overhead on Labor Day. Wondering what we're talking about? Let's show you. Okay, we have our skies set up for about an hour after sunset on Labor Day, September 5th, facing west. The first thing you'll see is the waxing crescent moon among the stars of Virgo the Maiden. The brightest star, Spica, is very close to the horizon and will get caught up in the sun's glare soon. So, if you want to see it, check it out on Labor Day.
Next, look toward the south, and you'll see the familiar shape of Scorpius the Scorpion. Among these stars is our first triangle of the evening. The northernmost point in this triangle is the ringed planet Saturn. Saturn's rings are tipped toward us in such a way that if you have a small telescope, you'll get a picture-perfect view. Saturn is also getting a little further away from us and getting a little dimmer. So this is the brightest and biggest it will be until next year this time. Make sure you check it out this week.
The leftmost star in the triangle is the red planet Mars. Mars is still fairly close to us, but like Saturn, it's also getting farther away and a little dimmer each day. Mars was named after the Roman god of war because the red color of this planet reminded many ancient people of blood and violence.
The final part of our triangle is formed by the star Antares. Antares means rival of Mars, and if you look at it closely, it has the same reddish tint as Mars. However, this red celestial dazzler isn't red for the same reason that Mars is red. Antares is a red supergiant star that's nearing the end of its life. This star is just over 550 light years away from us, and it's so large that you could easily fit the orbits of Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars inside it.
Alrighty, let's take a look at our second triangle for Labor Day.
Okay, we still have our skies set to an hour after sunset, and if you look directly overhead, you'll see the three brilliant stars of the summer triangle. Vega is the brightest star of Lyra the Harp, Deneb is the brightest star of Cygnus the Swan, and Altair is the brightest star of Aquila the Eagle.
The brightest star in the triangle is Vega, and it's only 25 light years from Earth, and is one of the most luminous stars in our neighborhood.
The second brightest star in the summer triangle is Altair, and it's only 17 light years from Earth. Of all the stars near us, Altair spins the fastest. At its equator, Altair can make one complete rotation in only 9 hours. Compare that to our sun, which takes 26 days to complete one rotation.
The last star of the summer triangle is the blue-white supergiant Deneb. Deneb just happens to be the North Star on Mars and is almost 60,000 times as bright as our sun. However, because it's over 3,000 light years away from us, it appears much fainter than Vega and Altair.
So, there you have it. Two bright triangles to light up your night sky this Labor Day. Mars, Saturn, and Antares.
And the ever popular and lovely summer triangle, Vega, Altair, and Deneb. Keep looking up.
Welcome back. Sea ice today extending quite down close to the coastline there with, of course, the outer edge is just open water, which means it's got less than 1/10 of any sea ice coverage. But that increases pretty dramatically back to the northwest here, and then you get up to about 7 to 10 coverage in the white zone there. And with the west-northwesterlies continuing, this will tend to continue to edge down toward the coast, but as it approaches the coast, the current there will carry it off to the northeast, and that's what's going on there north and northeast of Barrow with that portion of the map. Anyway, pushing on to the marine forecasts. Over the inside water is pretty light, north-northwest or just variable. At about 10 knots or less, seas pretty slight. We've got northwest winds here, 10 to 15 knots with 3 to 4 foot seas out along the coastline, and light winds up along the extreme north coast there around the Yakutat zone. And then for Saturday, that remains. Probably get a little more southwesterly, but staying quite light up here to the north. And then northwesterlies 10 to 15 on down the coastline with those seas at about 4 to 5 feet. Really not much change here over the southern inside waters with light winds, but northerlies picking up a little bit, coming up to 15 knots for Stevens Passage. Northern Lynn Canal, north 20, seas at about 4 feet. And for Prince William Sound, tomorrow variable at 10. Same forecast out here for Cook Inlet all the way down into Kamishak Bay with 10-knot winds in the forecast and pretty slight seas. Southwest 15 here across Kodiak Island. The Barrens more westerly, but light as well, only 15 knots. And the North Gulf Coast, as I mentioned, light variable winds. And then for Saturday, no change here for the North Gulf Coast. Light and variable, 4-foot seas, maybe 5. Light winds continue for Prince William Sound, as well as northern Cook Inlet. They do turn northeast at about 10 knots south of the Forelands. And then it looks like we've got some 20-knot winds here blowing in across the Barren Islands on into Kamishak Bay with 5-foot seas. East side of Kodiak Island here, southerlies at about 15. Shelikof Strait, pretty light, maybe southeast at 10 with seas 3 feet or less. And for Bristol Bay, southeast 10, seas 1 foot. You can't get much lighter or seas any flatter than that. And then you pick up to about 2 feet here on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. Southeast winds though, 15 to 20 knots coming across the zone there. So seas up to 6 feet there in the Pacific side, but pretty light winds back up towards Sitkinak with 5-foot seas. First day of the weekend, Bristol Bay south at 15 now. Next ends all the way down to Cape Sarachef, and then we've got southwesterlies at 15 from Cape Sarachef all the way up to Sitkinak with 6 to 7 foot seas. And then for the eastern Aleutians, southeast 20 about sums it up here. Seas running 5 to 8 feet, and then gets a little more easterly, but still at about 20 knots for Adak and Atka, 6 to 8 foot seas there. Northerlies, small craft advisory northerlies there for the far western Aleutians. And that holds through Saturday. They'll seas at about 10 feet out there into Saturday. Lighter, more westerly, less gradient there over the west central Aleutians. Adak and Atka south to southwest at 15 to 20 knots. Small craft advisories possible anywhere through these zones, south to southwest, call it 20 to 25 knots. Seas running 4 to as high as 11 feet. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, southeast 15, more easterly to the north there at the same speed. Then we've got small craft advisories. St. Lawrence Island here right down to St. Matthew Island and areas back to the west with, of course, lighter winds as you head east there. And the Pribilofs southeast to 20, seas running 5 feet. Those drop off a little bit there, holding the same direction, but come down to 15. South 15, south of Nunivak Island into Kuskokwim Bay. Easterlies at 20 north of the island there, and no change for St. Lawrence Island into the northern Bering small craft advisories for the next couple of days there. Seas running 7 to 9 feet. And then for the Arctic coast, northwesterlies here from the central coast over to Demarcation Point, only at about 10 knots, and the seas just 2 feet. A little bit more wind of a breeze here on the west side. Then we've got small craft advisories from Cape Beaufort all the way down to the Bering Strait there, northeast, 25 knots. And those seas at about 7 feet. And then for Saturday, those winds drop off pretty good, hold the same direction, but come down under small craft advisories there with 4 to 5 foot seas. And pretty light winds here in the western coast zone. Northwest 15 for the central coast with that Arctic front coming down toward the coastline there. You see a definite pickup in the westerlies ahead of that front, 25 to as high as 30 knots there toward demarcation point. And those seas building as well up to 9 feet here on the east side. For tonight, though, just lighter winds, low clouds, fog, areas of drizzle there, even over the north slope. Otherwise, south of the Brooks Range or through the Brooks Range southward, mostly clear skies all the way down the Gulf of Alaska again. Start to increase the clouds there for Kodiak Island and some partly to mostly cloudy skies across the southeast coast. Again, a few scattered showers over toward the border, but nothing really heavy at all. Rain spreads into the eastern Aleutians, takes a fairly good jog into the southern Bering Sea, and that will continue eastward and northward a little bit through the day Friday, bringing rain into the Alaska Peninsula. This old boundary here could kick off a few showers ahead of that or along it for the Alaska Peninsula. Sunshine again. Temperatures, as I mentioned, back into the mid-70s for the Susitna Valley again. 60s and 70s everywhere else up to the Brooks Range. Of course, a little cooler up through here. Definitely cooler north of the mountains there to the Arctic coast with low clouds and fog. And no change for the Panhandle through Saturday. Rain starts pushing into the southwest interior areas, but sunshine from Kotzebue Sound, Selawik, all the way down to Yakutat.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.